Hi everyone, welcome back to Total War Therapy. I'm Alberto and today we're gonna make as short as possible beginner's guide to the faction of the Dwarfs. We're gonna see all the different categories of melee infantry, missile units, lords and heroes and artillery. Again, a big thanks for all the support to my channel, it's very important to me, and let's begin. Hi, I'm Alberto, I'm a real person, and here you will find the beginner's guide, the battle unit roster, tier list, ranking and many shorts, so if you wanna support the channel, please consider to subscribe. Now let's quickly see all the main strengths and weaknesses of the Dwarfs faction. Let's start with the armor. You will notice that most of your units will have a very huge armor, except the Slayers actually, and the main consequence of that is that all the enemies without the armor piercing damage will be basically harmless against you, and then your units will have also a great mass, a great defense. So for example, a light cavalry charging them will have a very poor effect on your units. They will not be taken down, they will not fly away, so you can play more easily against them. Then all your units will have a spell resistance, and this means that they are less vulnerable to magic, so to the bombardments, to the winds, spells, to the debuffs, so you can care less about the spellcaster of the enemy. And this is great because since you don't have many fast options, it cannot be it can be sometimes not easy to get rid of the spellcaster. Then you will have one of the missile and artillery selection that is one of the strongest of the entire game. Okay, you don't have access to many units, but these units are all very efficient, very powerful, and this is a huge advantage for your gameplay. Now let's address the weaknesses. The first one is that they are dramatically slow, and there are very few fast options. There are the Slayers that, they are still not cavalry, and then there are the helicopters that they cannot fight in melee. So basically, if you have to chase down an enemy that is routing, or you have to debilitate an artillery at the very edge of the enemy army, you have to find another way. That is not always that easy. Then they are very expensive, and you will feel that if you play with the hard difficulty in the campaign, because even the lowest tier infantry, you know, it will require some resources and you have first to get them, and yeah, sometimes it can be complicated. And then they have access to no magic. There are the Runesmith that they are not properly magic, and in any case the selection is so poor that for me it doesn't count, and this is a great disadvantage in this game. Okay, now let's talk about the melee infantry, and before proceeding with all the different categories of units, I wanna first introduce you to how to upgrade your main front line. Let's start with the miners. That is the first unit, the lowest melee tier unit that you will have access to, and they are quite expensive if you compare them to the other lowest tier infantry in the other factions, but they are truly effective. You can use them even in the late campaign to protect your flanks, your artillery, your missile infantry, and yes, they are very strong for that role, and they have some armor piercing damage, so they can cause plenty of trouble to the armored units. And there is also a version with some blasting charges that can annihilate the unit that is going after them. And then when you are equipped with the buildings and with the resources, you can finally upgrade them to the Dwarf Warriors. That for me are enough strong frontline and melee infantry to deal with even the late game armies of the enemy. So you don't need to replace them with the Longbeards, at least for me. They are coming in two versions, one with shield and one with great weapons. We're gonna talk about all the additional abilities later, and if you boost them with the technology and with the red line skills of the Lord, believe me, they do what they are supposed to do and you don't need anything else. But if you get very rich and you're playing with easy settings, maybe at some point you want to provide yourself with the Longbeards that are the upgraded version. All the stats are better except the speed, of course, and they get some abilities like the encourage that, dwarves have plenty of leadership. There are the slayers that don't even need any boost of leadership, so quite not necessary. And then the immunity to psychology, that again it's not that useful for this faction. So for me, you don't need to replace your dwarf warriors, but of course if you want to take a couple of them to strengthen the main part of your front line, you're free to do it. Now let's start with the first category of the melee infantry, the shielded units, that I can define them the anti-missile, even if they are also the most defensive, so they are the best one to absorb the charge of a cavalry, even because they have the charge defense versus large, and they have plenty of armor, plenty of mass compared to the other front lines of this game. And I always suggest you against every faction to deploy, at least 4, 6, 8 of them, just to cover your front line, and then you can decide what to put in the other parts of the formation. You can start with the dwarf warriors, and then you have the Longbeards, and at the end the most elite, the Iron Breakers, that are these wall units with some blasting charges that they can use to annihilate the enemy before they engage in melee combat. And in the campaign you can get with this unit a particular technology that will unlock an ability that is called the directional shields. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't remember right now. And this ability will increase the missile resistance, the protection from all the missile damage, or in general this will make them more defensive, and yeah, that's great. Then we have the second category of the melee infantry, the great weapons, that basically they sacrifice the shield so they will be less protected against the missile attack, but to compensate that, they are equipped with these great weapons that they cause plenty of armor piercing damage. So against armored heavy units, they are the best option. Of course, I would suggest you to keep some of them behind the front line, so they will be less exposed to the missile enemies, and at the same time you can decide more easily where to send them. Okay, if there is a unit like in this case of heavy orcs attacking on the right, you know that you can send them directly there, okay, without have to deal with the enemy that is attacking you directly. And they are coming in many versions, the Dwarf Warriors one, the Longbeards, and at the end the Hammers, that is the most elite, and they have the magical attacks, and so much armor that probably you don't need a shield. And in the campaign you can get many stuff like the charge defense, so even them they can be a good protection against the cavalry. And at the end we have the Slayers, that are supposed to be your anti-large melee infantry. They are coming in many different versions, especially if you get the DLC Thrones of the K that will add the Lord and Hero option, an artillery piece with them, and so on. And yeah, except one unit, they are all anti-large, and they are faster than the generic dwarves. That it doesn't mean that they are fast for the game, they're just faster for their roster. They have 0 armor, so they are quite vulnerable to missile attacks, but they have the unbreakable ability, so they will not suffer any drop of leadership, they will fight till the last. And then they have an ability that when their health is reduced, they will get even stronger, together with some a Slayer ability that will negate any weapon strength reduction. They are very annoying, you can just send them against the large entities, they cause so much damage. And you have the first version, then the Giant Slayers that are the upgraded one, and you have then the Pirate, the Doom Seekers, that there are different versions that I already covered with another video about this faction. Now let's move to the missile infantry categories of this faction, and the first one are the crossbows, that are coming in many different versions, and they have the main strength of having an arc of fire, so they can shoot even if they are deployed behind your front line. For example, they can bypass obstacles, and this is a great advantage because you can protect them with your melee infantry, and they can keep shooting at the enemy in any circumstances. Now, they have a range that is shorter compared to the one of the archers or the other crossbowmen of some other factions, but is still great in my opinion. They are quite armored and great in melee, so if you are in trouble because there is a flying unit that manage to attack you, or a light cavalry, or if they are addressed by the missile fire of the enemy, they can deal with this kind of situation, and they are coming in two versions. The quarrelers are coming with the shield or with the great axe. Just decide what you most need in that army. And then there are the rangers, that are a particular unit in three versions that are coming with the DLC, the king and the warlord, that they have the stalk but also less armor. So yeah, if you want to deploy them out of your army to attack the enemy is great, but otherwise I would just rely only on the quarrelers. Then we have the handgunners that are coming in two versions, one available with the DLC Thrones of Decay. In any case, they require a straight sight of the enemy, so you need to deploy them in your front line, or just if they have to shoot at a tall unit, they can be deployed in the second line. But yes, they are a little hard to play with, because you have to find a way to protect them. You can put a lord or a hero as a bait in front of them to absorb the charge or all the enemies, and you have to play with your army formation. You can send forward some of your units that are at their sides, and then you can expand their formation so they will cover a huger area. But yes, they are a little tricky to use. I will make soon another video that explains very well how to use the gunpowder units. And yes, they are coming with this version, and then that has a nice range but shorter, but a lot of armor piercing damage, great against the armored units. And then there are the thunders with the grudge rakers that have a shorter range but a lot more of missile strength. And at the end we have the Iron Drakes, that are coming in two versions, and they work in the same way as the handgunners, so you need to deploy them in your front line, and this is necessary because otherwise they can cause plenty of friendly fire to your units. This is one of those units in the game that they literally don't care about your allies, so you have to be extremely careful. They have a short range flaming attacks, at least the Iron Drakes, the generic one, and they can cause plenty of damage to the enemy. They can annihilate one unit in a couple of shots, so be aware of this. And then there is another version that is the Iron Drakes Troll Hammer torpedoes, that they work in a quite different way. They are basically most suitable for large entities, but they have a rate of fire very slow, so yeah, in this case you need to deploy them behind your front line. Now we can proceed with the selection of the lords and heroes. The first category that you need at least one in your army is the tank. You can decide to have both a lord or a hero. There is the lord or the thane for the heroes, and they are basically very armored with the shield to be more protected against the missile attack. They will have plenty of defense, plenty of mass, so they will hardly taken down by the charge of a unit. And unless there is a great damage dealer in the enemy army, you can even just deploy them in the forward compared to the rest of your main army, and they will not be in trouble for that. They are very strong compared to all the tanks of this game, and yes, you need, as I said, at least one of them to absorb the damage of the enemy, both missile and melee, so you can take care with the rest of your army of the enemy units. Then we have the Rune Lord and the Runesmith that are respectively the Lord and Hero spellcasters of this faction. As I said, they have access to just this, we can say, lore of magic, even if it's not magic, that has different cooldowns, so it's harder to use. In any case, I think you need at least one in your army to take advantage of these abilities. They are very slow and they don't have access to fast mount. Only the Rune Lord can have one mount, but it's definitely not fast. So you need to create a hallway to your in your army formation, so they can move faster, they can reach the side, right side or the left sides, depending on which area needs you most in that moment. And yes, you need at least one of them that can be both the Lord or the Hero. Then we have the anti-large options, both the Lord and the Heroes that are Slayers, and they are recruitable with the DLC Thrones of Decay. I mean, otherwise you cannot play with them. They are quite niche for me, because if you already have the Slayers units, you don't need them. But I mean, it can always be great to have one of them, especially against the monsters and the mounted character. They are very powerful, and I mean, their hits you can feel them. Okay, they will take down a lot of health of the monster enemy, but of course they have many vulnerabilities, like the very little armor and but they are faster and with a lot of weapon strength, so in some situation they can be pretty useful. And at the end we have the Master Engineer, that is only a generic hero that is a controversial unit, because it's supposed to be both a support character and a missile specialist, but for me it's just the first, because as a sniper he has not a very long range, the missile strength is not enough to take down a monster, and then it requires the straight sight that, since it's also a support character, you cannot deploy it in the first line, but you need to put it very close to all the missile infantry, to all the to the artillery, something in the middle, because he needs to boost all these units, both with some aura and with some specific abilities. He can replenish the ammunition. So yes, not that effective as a sniper, but as a support character in your campaign, if you are focusing, if that army is focused on the missile and the artillery units, I really suggest you to get one of them. Now let's finally address the artillery categories of this faction, and the first one that I want to talk about are the anti-infantry options. Let's start with the grudge throwers, that are basically the catapults, and they have a shorter arc compared to the catapults of the other factions, but still great. In the warfare they are called indirect damage artillery, because since their ammunition, they go up and then they go down, so they can bypass an obstacle that in your case is the front line, or all your other units. This is great, because they don't need to have a clear sight of the enemy, and they are great against bunches of infantry. Now, the problem is that when you play with the hard difficulty, the enemies will try actively to dodge your ammunitions. That's why they can be not that effective. And then there is the unit of the flame cannons that, they are not, they are anti-everything, but I think they are most suitable for against the infantry, even if they have a very shorter arc, but they are, we can say, more associable to the catapults than the cannons. And the second category are the anti-large artillery, and also we can say the direct damage artillery. Let's start with the cannons that, there is the lesser version, the bolt throwers, but we're gonna talk about that later, even because I think it's a not necessary unit in this roster. Now, the cannons have a very shorter arc of fire, so in some situation you even need to deploy them in your front line, so they are more exposed to the charge of the enemy, to any kind of enemy trying to attacking you. But if there is the right strategic position in the map, you can just put them in your second line, third line, but you have to be very careful because, I mean, back in Total War Warhammer 2, they were causing plenty of friendly fire, because if there was an enemy and the arc was too low, it was happening that, you know, the bullet of the cannon was just tearing apart your own front line. And yes, they are most suitable against the large entities. They have a rate of fire that is generally slower, and they are coming with the mini version, the bolt throwers, then the cannons, and then for me the organ guns, that even if they are not I mean, necessarily against large entities, they are most suitable against them, and they have a direct damage, so you have to be careful of the low arc of fire as well. And the last category that we're gonna address in this video are the flying war machines that, as you know, in this roster they are many, and they have some similarities but also some differences. For example, the gyrocopters and the gyrobombers are fast, and they are multiple entities. Back in Total War Warhammer 2 there were even fewer entities, but then they understood that they were not efficient, so they put more helicopters. And then there is the Thunderbird, that is a colossal, very slow unit with plenty of damage, but yeah, you have just to put it in the middle of your army and I mean, get rid of the missile infantry and the flying units that can attack it. Now, the gyrocopters and the gyrobombers have also some bombs that they can drop as an ability, while the Thunderbird, he has the bombs as a normal attacks. And the gyrocopters are coming in two versions, one with I mean, generic ammunition, and one with the flamethrowers. There is also a special version with the troll hammers that is best against large entities, and the gyrobombers are the one most efficient against heavy armored units. They have the suppressed fire that will also reduce the speed. And yes, I think that every war machine here has its own peculiarity, the strengths and the weaknesses, and you have, you know, to learn how to use each of them to get the most of them. Thank you for following me. I know that I missed many units, but this guide was supposed to be shorter compared to the full roster analysis that I made in another video that you can check. And yes, thank you for following me, and see you very, very soon.